born and raised in Puerto Rico, it's always in my mind, like my people and my culture, it's always like, it's my identity. So me knowing about the issues that were going on in Puerto Rico and seeing how news platforms weren't really like reporting on the issues that were happening. So I did my research, and when I found that, you know, like with the law that is now with like the cryptocurrency millionaires moving to Puerto Rico, and I saw videos from Puerto Rico people protesting against them and, you know, seeing their movement. And when I did my research, I knew I had to pitch it to the class and see, you know, if people were interested in it. With the Senator Maria de Lourdes, I've known her for years, you know, being from Puerto Rico, and I've heard from her from other people of Puerto Rico and like my parents as well. So I reached out to her, I found her email, I just sent her a message, told her that, you know, our mission here was to, you know, shed light on what was happening in Puerto Rico, and that, you know, us, a group of students, were going to Puerto Rico and to report on these issues.
I think that media can be such an important vehicle to make people understand what it means to be in this position of political inferiority. I mean, recently, just like a couple of days ago, there was a new decision from the Supreme Court of the United States ratifying that Puerto Rico is a property of the United States. So your country sees my nation as chattel, as a possession, and that should be a source of shame for all citizens of the United States.
The island was different from my expectations, where like I was expecting it to be a lot more run down and kind of sad. That's the way the mainland paints this picture of Puerto Rico. I mean, obviously there are poverty-stricken areas and whatnot, but it's like a mini America, basically. There's a lot of things that feel very similar to the mainland. You kind of just feel maybe like you're in an island version of America.
I was really not expecting how the landscape, like the way the landscape looked the way it did. Like, it was just so beautiful. Like, the sunsets were like amazing. Like, you can't find like that scenery like anywhere else. Like, I've never been to a place like that before.
I didn't really have much of an expectation before coming. Like, I was very not knowledgeable, I guess, about Puerto Rico. So then when I came here, I just realized how diverse the whole island is, and terrain and people and everything. Like, the different areas are just so, like, they go beyond my expectations.
I've never even left the country, and I was expecting it to be a lot more beachy, more touristy, pretty much everywhere I went. What I wasn't expecting is to see towns of just different people, different cultures everywhere we went.
While I was on the internet looking into Puerto Rico, I came across this website. This gentleman, Samuel Gonzalez Rodriguez, he was part of this initiative to beautify communities and dilapidated communities. And he actually made this really cool book, Casitas de la Colores. And it's a really cool book about the houses of colors. And what they did for this initiative is they gathered community members together, and they, you know, then they put together a plan on how to re-beautify, you know, dilapidated communities. But they looked at communities with like hillsides, and how you could look at a hillside. If you were standing lower in the hill, if you were looking up at the hill, what kind of art could you do that would include all of the houses on the hill? And it's really cool because the initiative really, in the end, to me, isn't about art. It was more about bringing a community together, and more about showing communities that are almost forgotten or crime-ridden, that, you know, that people don't want to go into, that they matter. Well, the first thing I did to get into connection with Mr. Gonzalez is I ordered his book. And once his book shipped to me, I gave him an email. I put in an email to him, and I told him how interested I was in not only the book, but the whole project. Because once I got the book, that's when I got the details that it was really a lot more than I thought it was. And that's how I got a hold of it.
We wanted to encourage people from many places of Puerto Rico and abroad to come visit this place that previously wasn't seen as a place to visit because of its history regarding drugs and even crimes. And by painting it with a lot of shades and colors, we encourage people to come and visit this place, and coincidentally, after a couple of years, it turned out to be one of the most visited places, if not the most visited places in Yauco and even the whole southeast region, southwest region of Puerto Rico. So that gives you a scope of how art and a little bit of imagination could not just transform a community, but also a whole city.
Since coming here, the first lady that I interviewed was in Salinas, Puerto Rico, and she was selling lottery tickets in one of the plazas, and her name was Maria, very sweet woman. So I spoke to her a little bit about where she's from, how long she's been in Puerto Rico, and she told me about her niece who is in the States and she sells jewelry, and she was actually just in the paper, so she showed me a picture of her niece. And I kind of just asked people about the Puerto Rican culture and what being Puerto Rican means to them.
Everything. I love Puerto Rico.
So today I interviewed a man who for 10 years has been standing outside of a place called Pigeon Park in San Juan, and he sells bags of corn for $3 for one bag or $5 for two bags. You can get the bag of corn, hold it in your hand, and pigeons will just flock you. You're able to feed them. I just learned a lot about him and why he does what he does. He was so open. He was probably one of the nicest people I've talked to so far, and yeah, he was definitely one of my favorites.
Glenda taught or helped me translate with this one guy in Salinas, and he's an older man. He was 73 years old, and I really loved his interview because he did not trust the government, and he said that people in America, like organizations in Texas, would help more than the government in Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria.
This lady came in and she was dressed like really professional and fancy, and that's when they asked, and the people were like, oh, that's like the first lady of San Juan. And we were like, oh, like we were so surprised and kind of shocked that we kind of, you know, saw her, like have a glimpse at her. We were like, should we try to talk to her? We weren't sure if she was gonna talk to us back.
I honestly didn't switch to journalism until 2 years ago, and the reason why I switched is because I liked current issues in society a lot, and I realized I wanted to work and be engaged with current events, and I realized that there were so many voices of people that weren't being seen or getting heard, and I wanted to be able to highlight those. And I ran into journalism and realized that journalism is a great gateway into being able to give everyone a voice.
Recently with journalism, I've fallen in love with interviewing specifically and taking stories from human sources and turning them into their own. I think that's my favorite form of journalism. So really just learning about people and the human sources behind a story is my favorite part.
It's helped me with my career. So it's helping me, I'm going up to people who don't even speak English or barely speak English and actually having an amazing conversation with them. It's helping me with my interview, like the interview I had today. How it just flows so well, so it's helping me with my career.
I have always been a storyteller. If you know me, I'm gonna tell you a long, annoying, and entertaining story, and I've always looked for an outlet to put all these thoughts and all the craziness that goes on inside my head. And I think too, I'm a very passionate person, and when I really feel strongly about something, it's all I can think about, it's all I care about, it consumes me.
So what drew me to journalism was honestly the entertainment field and kind of just how culture is gauged through journalism. And I feel like learning here in Puerto Rico and other cultures, there's just so much that you can learn through entertainment and culture.
Now I kind of want to focus on telling people stories and like the issues like gentrification in Puerto Rico. Like that's what I really want to love to do, like tell people stories to make a difference in the world.
Two things really kind of drew me into journalism, and one was I wanted to better my writing, and be a better writer for my clients. But I was also a freelance photographer, and it was a hobby of mine, and the camera, taking pictures, really drew me into photography and photojournalism.